Hello, it's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology. And what I like to do is just share something we're doing at the moment, part of a project with Innovate UK and Baxi Boilers, where we're actually looking at doing some digital demonstrations around the kind of service that we can offer. But it's also on the back of 4 years of work that we've spent with the Aston University's Advanced Services Group. So what I do is just go through a few slides, but then show you a little bit about what we actually do within that. So the journey itself has been about 4 years. So we started working with Aston's as Advanced Services Group in 2017. What we did initially was look at all the kind of things we might want to do, but this is back in June of 2017. So our thought process have changed dramatically in that 4 years. But it was things like extending the kind of service we're offering around help desk and support into out of hours and prioritizing particular customer types as well. We're also looking at better documentation for all of the services that we deliver and making it easy for people to understand what we did. So lots of changes in that. We also looked at, the challenges we had. So one was actually developing the right level of knowledge for all the products and services we had at the time, but also looking at the right types of employees or recruiting new staff to make sure we had the right skills and experience within the team to be able to do what we needed. Also improving the documentation and process, the way that we actually contracted and build customers, publishing more information about what we do into different marketplaces. And the idea was to, build on what we'd done up to that point, but extend it further. But some of the things we were trying to do is climbing a ladder, which is actually going from the basic type services through intermediate into advanced services. And again, this was working with Aston University in their Advanced Services Group, looking at how we can achieve this. Part of that process, what we're doing is increasing the value that we're delivering to the customer, but also increasing the value that we are working with that customer. But again, we're also being more competitive and advantageous by this development, but also taking on more risk as well, because we're more involved with the customer in what we deliver. Starting out, we would always have done in the past some kind of product. This was compute platforms, networking infrastructure, storage arrays, all the standard types of infrastructure most people would require. We would also have a parts service. So if a particular component failed, like a disk drive, a processor or a memory chip, we could actually replace that. And we had a break fix service, either delivered directly from ourselves to our customers or through the vendor that we'd actually delivered the actual product to. The idea was to move on from there. So one of these things is making sure that the product is always delivered at the best condition possible. So if we were considering something like a lawnmower, making sure the blades are sharpened, the engine's running at top performance, the wheels are clean so it can run cleanly across the grass. But in our case, it's making sure that storage platform, that compute platform, whether it's virtual machines or containers, is delivering the highest availability, the highest performance, and is allowing the customer to deliver what they need to on top of that. But this next thing is to understand what the customer is using this particular compute or storage or network platform for, and try to ensure that they utilize it for its best use. So really understanding what they're trying to achieve and making sure the product or service that we deliver is correct for that use, and making sure they know how to utilize it to get the best results. Also, then we're looking at how we can guarantee the outcome of that. So making sure that the product itself delivers the best it can. And what we're doing here is look at ITOM and AI Ops to be able to monitor all the infrastructure we provide, whether that's on a customer premise, in a public cloud environment, or in a colo facility, or within our private cloud infrastructure, and making sure that we understand what's happening, correlating all the events that we see within it and metrics, and then making sure we can automate majority of the remediation activity. So if we get a switch failure or a particular piece of infrastructure failure, we can identify it and fix it automated as quickly as possible, so that the customer doesn't see an issue. It continues to operate from a customer's perspective. Moving on from that, it's the business processes that sit on top of that infrastructure, whether that's something like a HR system, ERP system, an e-commerce platform selling products out to their customer base over the internet. We need to make sure that the infrastructure else delivers against those services that customers trying to achieve. So again, what we're doing is mapping these services onto the infrastructure and then be able to show the customer the kind of level of service that we're delivering through those business processes out to their user base. And we can do things like synthetic transactions and things to make sure everything is working as well as it could be. At the top level, this is a bit of a challenge for us being a technology business delivering technology solutions. But what we can do is also capture metrics using things like Prometheus, which is quite commonly seen in a container environment, and we can utilize that to capture monetary values for transactions that are going through an e-commerce platform, to understand the transactional volume through an ERP or a HR type system as well, and actually showing back to the customer that they're actually guaranteeing the outcome of that business platform itself rather than just the infrastructure that supports it. To do all of this, we've had to look at 6 main areas. One of them is to actually look at the performance measurement that we do, looking at how we actually understand what those KPIs, those key performance indicators are, whether that's an availability level, a performance level, or a metric of number of transactions that have flown through a particular system, to ensure that we're meeting the customer's business goals, not delivering just a basic capability. We also need to look out at the facilities we offer. Instead of always just selling the product and it becoming the customer's problem and sitting in the customer's premise, it may be that we deliver a service that's co-located with the customer. So in their data center, in their co-location facility with a third-party network and colo provider, or in a cloud environment. We also then need to consider the front office, how we actually work with the customer, how we actually deliver services and design service and implement those services, and how we integrate that with the customer's systems as well, including our back-end support capabilities. For this, we need to really think about people, and it's not just internally, so our own staff, it's also thinking about how we can actually interact and work more closely with the customers' people, because it will be a combined effort in delivering these services. We also need to make sure that we can be adaptable and flexible and also resilient in how we deliver it, and making sure both our and the customers, people who are on the technical side, are adept with what they need to do with this and have the skills to be able to not only build relationships with each other, but also look at the technical aspects of the solution. In going forward in delivering this, we're also changing what we're doing from an infrastructure perspective. So the technology is changing, where it's located, how it's put together, how we measure the condition of things is changing. So we really need to focus on that technology and make sure we're actually using the right solution for the job. And we've spent a lot of time over the last 3 years selecting the right ITOM and AIOps platforms. We're also doing this work in SIEM and also behavioral sciences around security for this as well, because we think security is a really important factor. And then finally, the processes that we deliver this under, how we build relationships, how we communicate proactively with the customer so they understand what's happening, and providing as much information as they need in the format they need it, rather than just considering our own requirements. So we pulled together a number of services. It goes beyond these 9 on the slide, but this is to give you an idea of the kind of thing we're doing. So one of them is providing a self-healing infrastructure and service. So we can actually put infrastructure in place, whether it's a virtualized or a compute platform that's delivering containers, and we can ensure that it actually self-heals. So we were looking at the events that are coming from it, the metrics coming from that infrastructure, whether it's on-premise, in a private or public cloud environment, and actually then automating the remediation activity after doing automated diagnostics. So making sure that we can actually do it without people interaction. Because if we can fix it before it actually affects the end user's ability to use a system, a much better way to do it. Or even if we can gather all the details for the diagnostic work in advance and have that available to the engineer as soon as the incident's raised in the ticketing system, again, it's going to really speed up the process of remediation. Also, it might be good to actually see it like your customer sees it. So, what experience are your customers getting with availability, performance, transactional volume through a system that they interact with you? That could be an internal customer or an external customer. It could be a business partner or a consumer. So, how can you actually see the systems that you utilize to run your business and how they're actually seen by the outside world and the experience they have? One real area is cybersecurity, and ransomware seems to be in the news all the time. So, what about being able to get back in business as soon as you've identified an attempted ransomware attack, or just after? So one, identifying it, but also be able to recover really quickly and be up and running, rather than 2 to 4 to many hours it takes some organisations to identify they've had an issue and then deal with it. Sometimes the actual average time that someone identifies a breach, and we'll talk about breaches a little bit later, is up to 6 months, and which is a long time where a hacker has actually had access to your systems and be able to work on them to try and access data during that period of time. We've got the climate quite in focus at the moment with the COP26 activity in Scotland at the moment. But how healthy is your environment? We're actually providing IoT devices that can actually measure the noise level, humidity, temperature, the amount of particulate matter sub 2.5 microns that could damage lungs, even actually giving you an air quality index using the International Air Quality Index number, and tell you exactly what's happening now, but also historically over the last year, once we've captured a year's worth of metrics with these devices. These can be positioned in hospitality venues, they could be in homes, they could be in plant rooms, or in a manufacturing facility, or even a commercial office space. So you can actually see exactly what's happening with the environment there. And it's quite key at the moment, because we had the first UK death from air pollution last year. So we want to really be looking at how healthy the environment is and making sure we're protecting our employees and our guests if it was a hospitality venue as they come into it. Another area which can be quite topical is the use of cameras to understand what's happening in an environment. But if you consider you're working in something like a manufacturing facility, to be identify what's happened in an incident and quickly sort out ways to get around that with your risk assessments and your health and safety processes is a critical thing. But also, keeping an eye on buildings that aren't in use during the night and ensuring that we know if someone's actually broken into them is also a key one. The solutions we're offering go across multiple sites, even multiple country, with a single service to deliver that. One area that a lot of people are challenged with is to actually move to this cloud native deployment using containers. The most common orchestrator out there is Kubernetes, but most people, if they try and go beyond 4 nodes in a piece of infrastructure, are challenged with the technology. What we're delivering is Kubernetes and cloud native services delivered with an easy button. So really simple to deploy. And you can see it however you want to see it. So the DevOps and development people can see it how they would normally using command line and automation. And the operations people see it through more of a familiar interface to them, where they can actually see what's happening from a health and security perspective, understand the network configuration and what's happening within it. We also want to control access to sites, because all of this infrastructure sits somewhere, whether that's on our own premise, a small data center within our buildings. It could be comms rooms in there, or even storerooms that have got expensive equipment. We might want to control access to those. But you also might want to control access into the building itself from the front door, and maybe a secondary door, after we go from the public area into a more closed and restricted area behind that. It's a real challenge to deliver control across multiple buildings using traditional ways to do access control. We have a way to actually make it simpler and also allow you things like allowing contractors in at out of hours times for short periods of time. And tied in with the camera systems, we can also look at lone worker capability from a health and safety perspective. But using that, we can have a single card or fob, or even using your mobile phone to access all the sites you need to at the times you're able to access them. Come back to this security from a cyber security perspective. One area is to make sure that your current infrastructure is secure, whether it's AWS, Azure, or on-premise infrastructure. How secure is it? What about those software service capabilities? Taking something like email and OneDrive from Microsoft through their Office 365 platform. How secure is my configuration? How can I understand what's happening there? But also, how do I identify any breaches that happen? Any security breaches into that, and how do I automate the response? Because if I automate the response, I can ensure it's quick and also consistent, so we can deal with a problem very, very quickly. At the moment, it's a really important area for a lot of organizations. What I'd like to do is just carry on a little bit on that security side. So talking about ransomware, a lot of people I might be watching this video know what ransomware is and the difference between malware and ransomware. But let's talk about the two. So malware is some malicious software that's used for a variety of malicious purposes, and we'll talk about those purposes in a second. But ransomware is a specific form of malware that's designed to stop you accessing your computer and the data that's stored upon it and charge you money. So what can malware do? First of all, it can, lock out a system either intentionally or unintentionally, depending on the type of software that's utilized. Also, it can be used to steal, delete, or encrypt data. So things like credit card information, customer data, those kind of things. It can also be used to take control of your devices to attack other organizations. We have this situation where a lot of hackers gather lots of computers together to do things like denial of service attacks, and they do it distributed across a large number of computers that use malware to take control of. Also, they use it to obtain credentials that can be used for other organization systems. So effectively a sideways attack. So get into one organization and slide into the other with the credentials that they've got hold of. Also, they can be used for mining cryptocurrency. So setting them up as mining tools using software for a variety of cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and things like that. Also, they can actually be used to engage costly services. One of the key ones that happens quite regularly, especially with telephone systems, is dialing premium rate numbers through the VoIP-based system that's sat on a server or an appliance that's within our premise. So coming back to ransomware, it really only has one use. That's to cause a device to become locked and also make sure that you can't get to the data or application that are stored on it. Then they're looking to charge you money to be able to give you access to your computer, your server or servers, and your applications and data. But even if you pay, not always will you get your data back and access to your computer systems. So most people actually go down the route of some kind of backup and recovery capability. And we also need to talk about immutability. So taking a backup is capturing information about the data on a computer system and the computer system itself. So we can take a full image of the whole of the system, or we can just capture the data and applications for that system and then rebuild and then restore on top of that. Mutability is quite an important thing because the hackers have understood this, especially the ones that are doing these ransomware attacks. And what they're doing is actually going and finding your backups, especially if they're on some kind of tape system or storage system internally, and then they'll encrypt those. And then that stops you just recovering back to your last backups you've taken. Immutability is ensuring that those files can't be changed. So once they're written, these snapshot files, they can't be modified afterwards. Let's talk a little bit about what happens with an attack. So we've got a timeline here and we've got an attack point. One of the things that we have is a thing called a recovery point objective, an RPO. So that is the time we've got to go back before we can recover. The other thing is the recovery time objective. So how long after the attack will we be back in business and all our services available to our users, and we can continue to work as normal. The time between the attack going back to the RPO gives us a loss of data. So if you're doing a traditional 12-hourly or 24-hourly backup, so just after midnight every night, depending when that attack happens, you could lose up to 24 hours of data. If it happens just before your next snapshot run and your backups are being copied, you could lose potentially up to 24 hours worth of data. But that could also be reduced down to minutes, even to zero, with something that actually gives you constant data protection. Going the other way, it's the amount of time that we've lost from the attack to actually recover the system and be back in production and be able to do whatever we do, whether it's a manufacturing facility, an e-commerce platform, or what it is. And that loss of time can be a very big impact financially, especially for a large e-commerce outfit. You know, many millions of dollars or pounds could have been lost in that period of time. So that recovery point time objective is quite critical. With the services that we're offering, what we actually deliver is something like 1 hour or even a constant data protection piece. So your RPO, the most it's going to be is an hour, up to potentially zero. And then going the other way, the loss of time to the recovery, we're looking at seconds. So we can actually recover a lot of customer systems in around about 17 seconds. But if you've got a very large number, so you've got 6,000 systems to recover, it may take a little bit longer because physically we've got to get everything up and running. You know, to get something like 6,000 machines up and running, even with the service we offer, will take potentially up to 2 hours. But again, that's much better, than a lot of people's situation, where it could be, 12 to 48 hours to actually get themselves back up and running in business. What I'm going to do is carry on with this at a later date and give you a bit more of a picture of the kind of things that you can achieve with this, and do some demonstrations of the services that we offer. But hopefully that's giving you a bit of an idea of what we've done and how we've gone about it and why we've done it. Because really what we try to do is deliver to the customer something that actually gives them a real capability. In this case, we've just talked about is the ability to recover quickly from a ransomware attack, but that could be, an accidental deletion of a computer system, a file or a folder, or it could have been an intentional one from a disgruntled employee. Whatever happens and has happened, and also you could have a traditional component failure in a compute platform that corrupts data as well. But whatever happens, we can recover that customer situation and get them back up and running really quickly. The key differentiator here, though, is that we provide all the service and skills and experience to deliver it. So you don't have to, on your own, have all those capabilities in-house. And that's what the challenge is today. We've moved away from the world that most people have got specialisms in, data storage, backup and recovery, particular types of technology for delivering operations. No one has that anymore. We have network and we have generalist computing people. It's a challenge for any of these organizations with these general user and general technology people operating these systems to be able to achieve very high levels of performance in things like data protection and many other things, because it's outside of their experience. So to have a service that delivers all of that to you and also ensures the health of those systems as they're moving forward is a very different way of approaching things. It's like in the past, we may have tried to fix our own car. They're too complex these days to fix. we need to take to someone who's got the diagnostic skills and equipment to be able to test the system. In a lot of cases, the actual changes are actually done electronically or through software. And again, we don't have the capabilities or skills to do that. So we need to actually work with a professional who understands it and has all the equipment and skills to do that. And this is very similar to what's happening in computing these days, when we're moving away from that that key focus on particular technology to more generalist in our IT departments. And we really need support from outside organisations. And that's what we've seen with the work we've done with the Advanced Services Group at Aston University and some customers and potential customers, that's their challenge. It's people, skills and experience, and looking for the right technology and services that are going to support their businesses going forward. So hopefully it's been of interest. Always happy to answer emails and questions, things. It'd be great to see you again on one of our other presentations. We'll repeat this next Wednesday, but take it into the next stage, talking about the service we deliver. But also we have other videos going on. We normally do a physical security one on a Wednesday, so that'll be on a Friday. So it'll be on Friday around about 3 o'clock. We also do interview sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The Tuesdays are general enterprise businesses and people within those businesses giving an idea of their experience and what their organisation delivers. And on a Thursday, we focus on the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Programme. So we've got 2 interviews next week, one on Tuesday from an enterprise organisation, and on Thursday we've got one at 3 o'clock, with one of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business people who've been through the process, and they're going to give you an idea of their journey and also how they've actually introduced what they've learned through the program into their business and the effect it's had. So thank you very much for today, and hopefully I'll catch you on a video in the near future. Bye.